So whether you choose to do running, resistance training, hiking, I love running, I love hiking now, and my motto has always been, if you do what you love, you'll love what you do, and it'll be sustainable. This is a college track. There's nobody here now, but it's a nice oval where I can at least get into a groove where I'm running, doing a pre-measured amount of distance in steps. And it also reminds me of the high school days and college days. So this happens to be my personal preference. Yours might be different. And I've been really talking about a lot of hiking and walking in the last few weeks. I want you to find your own groove. Okay, to mix it up, for those of you who think that walking or hiking isn't too challenging, my suggestion would either be, if you have an area that you can find elevation at, then add elevation to your walking routine or your trail. The other thing to do, if you're in Illinois and it's flat, you can always try to get something like a weighted vest. This is a 20-pound Gold's Gym weight vest. You can throw this on underneath your jackets, and it'll give you some nice and even weight distribution, so you don't even notice it. It is kind of hot though, so during summertime, expect it'll be rubbing and cause some abrasions to your skin. The other option is taking water. Most of you do long day hikes. You usually have to take some form of water. Your calculation should be easy. A gallon of water equals about 9 pounds, so if you're carrying a couple gallons, then you'll have the equivalent of a weight vest in addition to more. You can always get it in a day pack or a bigger pack if you go hiking. The only problem is this has to be built to carry heavy weight. You can watch other videos as far as how to distribute the weight. I usually keep it right in the center and close to the pack, and then use other areas to stuff, just so it doesn't shake around a lot, especially if you're going on a pretty vigorous hike. If you're going to be using extra weight, you're going to be off, or at least your center of gravity will be off, so you always have to rely on walking sticks. Even if you think you can tolerate it by trying to get into a proper gait, use this after a couple hours, your back will be a little better. Otherwise, you're going to force the possibility for low back pain to come up. So these are some other options that you can invest in to change around the resistance of your walking routine. If you're getting into walking and the only thing you can do is steps, and do it in your local neighborhood, it might look a little funny to have a weighted vest or big backpack if you don't have any woods around, but to heck with it. I mean, it'll give you some resistance. Maybe you can inspire other people. You can always go for the weighted vest, or kind of rig up your own weighted vest, but just be careful. Sometimes if you try to take on hills with extra weight, it's kind of like carrying a kindergartner or a second grader on your back. Your knees are going to feel it after a while. Don't push it. You have to listen to your body. The idea about all this stuff is to make it easier to reproduce. If it's easy to reproduce, you'll do it more often and you'll get it out of the way. If you have more resistance added to your program, it can cause problems, and then you're back to square one after the 12 weeks with an injury, and then you'll gain weight and you'll start all over again. So try this if you're not being challenged by walking or hiking. In our case of the hike that I'm leading in Zion, I ask people to work on elevation changes, on high knee stepping, and some weight, because if we're going to go through a whole 12 hours of hiking, I do want my hikers to be able to tolerate a little bit of a challenge when they get to the high parts of our mountain trip. One of the most important things about exercise is not really the exercise, it's the recuperation and the total amount of exercise that you do in a given amount of time. So I like resistance training because of my old time spent in bodybuilding, but if you look at the total amount of calories that you burn in any kind of resistance training, it kind of pales compared to say the amount of calories you take in a day versus the amount of steps. Remember, I talked about this in the last 2 weeks. This is my pedometer. At work today, I put in about 6,000 steps. The goal is, for me, 5 to 10,000. And that's with just regular work. That's going around the hallways the long way. That's parking a couple extra slots down the parking lot. That's taking the steps intentionally a couple more times than usual. It's having the intention of keeping up with the numbers and hitting your goal. When you do resistance training, there's only so much you can do in a given amount of time. All my steps were while I was working, so it essentially didn't take me away from work, and it just added to the amount of calories I burned in a day. So those of you who say you don't have any time, I don't think that's true. I think if you divide your work and your leisure at the right amount with the right intention of trying to get as many steps, or burn calories, not only during your given exercise time, but throughout the whole day, you'll have a higher sustainability and higher success rate. So you can continue with your given exercises, whether it's circuit training, elliptical trainer, treadmill, but don't forget that half hour to hour that you spend on a treadmill, sweating, getting a good heart rate up, pales in comparison to the 12 hours that you could be doing something extra while you're working. So please consider the easy things, hiking, walking, steps during the day. Just be accountable for that. That's one thing with regards to exercise. I promised you in the last video that I would tell you about the secrets to exercise. Longevity would be number 2. Hydration's number 3. Most important after you exercise is to try to get some form of hydration, rehydrate right afterward and during, and then don't forget you want to carb up right afterward with good carbs. That's the one benefit with fruits, is that you have fast access. It is high in carbohydrates, maybe high in calories, but they're good carbs. And if you're a runner and you carb up before a race, that's when you burn up all the glycogen that's stored up in your liver, and you get down to a certain level, and then you rehydrate, recarb up right before your race or the night before. It does work for a short time. I don't think it really works for long distance or marathon pace, but it does help before competition. And this is exactly what I do: hydration and carbs. So it's very important. The other thing I'll mention to you is that sleep is so important. Those of you who are stressed out or have irregular sleep periods, you got to try to fit in at least 7 hours. 6 hours is cutting it. You're either going to hit the wall later on, or the efforts that you spend with the resistance training or with your intentional exercise during that block of 1 hour, you'll either get hurt or you're going to not be able to recuperate. You'll have persistent pain, muscles won't recuperate or reverse fast, so you have to fit in some form of sleep. And for those of you who are having issues with tossing and turning, I like to try to get the circadian rhythm back in with melatonin, valerian, 5-HTP, even magnesium. So those things are not addictive. They induce a good sleep cycle. They help you with the stages of sleep, and they have low side effect profile. I'll list down my favorites, and you can kind of pick and choose which one you might want to try to, at least in this next couple weeks, to instill a better circadian rhythm and a deeper sleep. Even if you do get to sleep and you sleep a complete 6 hours, the challenge is to try to go deeper with your sleep cycles. I'll put a link to a previous lecture that I did about sleep, and maybe you'll understand about that. So it's the longevity, the total amount of activity that you're doing in a 24-hour period, the rehydration, and the conscious effort to put in carbohydrates again so you can exercise and get the next day as beneficial as possible, and then rest. Those are my secrets to a good exercise routine, more so than the type of exercise or circuit training or doing far leg running. It really, that all helps to keep you in the game and keep you interested in it, but really it's the total amount of time. That's why I divide this into a long period of 12 weeks, because we want this to be sustainable. And even after the 12 weeks, we want this to be able to continue on with a great lifestyle.